All right, you ready to do this?
I am. Let's do it, man.
You know, Pastor, it is, what's my keyword every time? It's another week.
It's another week.
It's another week. All right, let's do this. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of PJ Talks with New Life Church's lead pastor, Pastor James Ranger.
Let's do it.
Hey, how have you been?
I am fantastic.
Yeah?
I really am.
You feel
I'm
good?
So good.
Are you going to the gym still? Like, what's your deal?
Why would you lead with a question like that, Robert?
You know, let's redo this.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go. We'll redo this.
Yeah.
Pastor.
Yes.
How are you and Pastor Lydia?
Lydia and I are doing. Oh, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've worked out all the kinks. We're perfect.
Well, good, because today we're talking about marriage.
Wow, let's do it.
Yeah. So
It could get a little real. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I have no experience in marriage. I don't know if you know this.
Okay. I have 38 years.
You have 38 years. I'm 23. Your boy's single, and I don't need to know marriage stuff.
Yeah.
But I do need to know marriage stuff eventually. But in the church world, the ministry world, or even in the leadership world,
Yeah.
it gets tough. There's sacrifices that need to be made. There's different things that happen. There's arguments. There's all kinds of different stuff. Can we just go in head first to what marriage is like, how you and Lydia have kind of navigated over the years, the ups, the downs, the trials, things, tips?
You really want to go there?
I really do, because you and Pastor Lydia are very open on platform
We are.
about the trials and tribulations that you guys have gone through in your marriage. And for me, as a young person, it gives me hope, because in the world that we're in right now, it sucks. Like, not the world sucks. I mean, never mind. We're going to move past that.
Yeah.
But the marriage part sucks. It feels like true love, or love that grows and continues to change and shift but stays relevant,
Right.
doesn't happen.
Right.
But you are a living example that there's ups and downs, there's
Indeed.
peaks and valleys, and you grow together.
Right.
So how have you done that? Because you got married at a young age.
Okay, let's dive into that. But let me tell you why, because I didn't know we were going to talk about this. So
No, I kind of just sprung this on you.
This is fresh. This is raw. But the reason why this is important, let me give you a scripture. The Bible says, as a man leads his household, he will lead the house of God. The same, because the house of God is a family. You're going to lead the family of God the same way you lead your family at home. So the way your marriage goes, the way your home goes, is the way, and I promise you, I've watched it through the years, the way I lead my family, the way I raised my sons, my biological sons, is the way that I lead and I raise spiritual sons and daughters the same way. The way that I treat Lydia, how do I resolve conflict? How do we do it? It all impacts the way that I lead the church. So I think it's a great topic, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, we got married young.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Babies.
How'd you meet her?
I met Lydia the first time I saw Lydia. I was 17.
Were you preaching?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Because you did start preaching at 17, right?
I accepted my call at 17, yes, and I gave my first sermon at 17. I did, yes.
Wild.
But I watched Lydia. I heard her before I saw her. So I had a group, a singing group behind stage, and with this concert thing going on, and Lydia had a group, and Lydia's only 14. She's 14, I'm 17. And I'm hearing this 3-part harmony out on stage. It's beautiful. Then I heard this voice, and I envisioned a 400-pound woman, because this was like a voice, like massive, right? So I went out and I looked around the partition, and I looked, and there's this little twig of a little girl, and she's like belting it out. And I thought, my gosh, that girl is awesome. But I wasn't attracted to her. She's cute, but, she's 14. I'm 17, But let's just say the following year was really good to her.
Oh, my God.
And that's all I want to say. And by the time she's 15, I asked her out on a date. And I was dating some other girls by the time I'm 18, and I'm playing the field. Oh, I'm a player. I was a player. And yeah, I was dating two other girls, started dating Lydia, but that stopped really quick because I, fell in love with her. She fell in love with me, and yeah. So a year later, She was 16 and I was 19, and we got married.
Now, most would say that that was not okay. Not because of the age thing, but just because of how young you guys were in general.
Yeah.
And how, like for me, I know that I'm not going to be the same person at 50 or at 80 that I am at 23.
No way.
I just know.
Right.
I've seen from your example and other people and books and whatever, life changes, you change.
Hopefully.
How has that been through the years? Changing.
Well, let's put that in perspective. 16.
Yes.
My Layla, my granddaughter Layla, is turning 14 this summer.
I know.
When I think of 2 years from right now, some boy come along that's 19 years old and marrying her, I'm going to load a shotgun. I'm going to punch somebody. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The fact is that Lydia's mom was 14 when she married, and Thomas was 18. So when I went and asked for permission, that's another whole story that's very funny. But anyways, Thomas eventually said yes, and he actually had to sign in Arkansas for her to marry me. She had to sign. They had to sign for her, and yeah. Because what happened? You think about Lydia and I. We were teenagers when we got married. Then in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, now our 50s, and I'm headed to 60. We've been together literally all of our life from teenagers, and I have been married to 5 different women, all in the same person. Because I promise you, the Lydia of her teens wasn't the Lydia of the 20s, because Lydia was, yes, sir, and let's do this thing, and man, I was the lead dog, and I was taught a certain way a man's supposed to be, and she kind of fell in line. But around 25, she found her voice. She had opinions of her own, and we started having some real troubles, some real conflict. And then, through the years, you both change. And but here's the key, Robert, the longevity. How do you stay? Well, it's a covenant. You make a covenant before God. Marriage is a covenant. Till death do us part. Sickness and health, good and rich or poor, all that.
But wait, wouldn't that make you want to pause a little bit before jumping into the commitment?
Yeah, you better.
I mean, that gives me personally anxiety. I have no idea who I'm going to marry, but it gives me anxiety sitting in this chair right now to think yes, it's pretty much unchangeable. I don't want to get divorced.
Right.
I don't want to go through that. I've seen, my parents go through that.
Sure.
I don't want to repeat the cycle.
Right.
So it's a lot of anxiety.
And you need to respect it, and you should feel the weight of it. And I don't know about necessarily, I can understand the anxiety, but I don't think you have to have that, because God is going to direct you. He's sovereign, and you have to really believe that.
That is true.
That
is good.
Okay, but here's what I'm saying about covenant, because covenant says, I'm with you for the rest of my life. As long as I'm alive, you are my wife, you are my husband, we're married together. And if Lydia and I didn't have that kind of covenant, we would have been divorced 4 or 5 times. Easy.
So you started with that as the foundation, both agreeing, no matter what.
We tease, we say, divorce was never an option, murder was. There's times we just didn't get along, didn't like it. We loved each other, never stopped loving each other, but there's times when she couldn't stand me, I couldn't stand her. How
do you distinguish between the two? Because a lot of times in culture, they will say, I just don't get the butterflies anymore. I don't see the same wooing. I don't like them very much right now.
It's a good question. And the truth is that's where covenant comes in, because covenant has nothing to do with emotion.
Ooh.
Think about this. The biblical kind of love, there's 4 kinds of love in Scripture. 4 kinds of love. There's the obvious one we know about, eros, erotic love, romantic, sexual love. There's phileo, that's a Greek word for Philadelphia, brotherly love. And then there's so there's 3. There's a 4th, I can't remember what it is. But the 3rd one is agape love. That's the covenant love. Agape has nothing to do, it's the divine love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Had nothing to do initially with necessarily an emotion. God has all 3 loves. Yes, he does. As far as a romantic love with us, not sexual obviously, but romantic. He romances us. We're friends with God, filial, but agape love is this: I choose to love you. Now that isn't sexy and that doesn't sizzle, but the truth is that is the highest form of love that there is. The highest form of love is I chose to love my wife. Lydia chose to love me. And yes, young, you're very romantic and you become friends, but the highest level is when you can say, you know what? I choose to love you. I don't feel like it. I don't have a quiver in my liver right now. I don't have jelly in my belly. I don't feel all this stuff, but I'm going to choose to love you because here's what's going to happen, Robert. The ebb and flow. Talk to anybody who's been married for a while, been friends for a while. Your feelings are going to go like that, and then they're going to go like that, then like this. And in the valley, if you're depending on that romantic love or that friend love to keep you together, forget it. Forget it. It's God chose to love you, Robert. He's never going to stop loving you. It's a covenant. He's a covenant God, right? So he chooses to love you.
As you're talking about the agape love, it reminded me of a story when I was 7. I was out at my mom and papa's house. They attend our church, but they're funny.
I love them, by the way.
I love them too.
Great people.
They're funny. We're out by the apricot tree because my grandpa had different fruit trees and stuff, and he's reaching up. And at the time, it was really popular in culture to have everything iced out. There was the grills that were all diamonded out, the big chains, like Flava Flav was all about with the big clocks. And that was the season that we were in as a culture. But his ring is like a gold nugget and has a bunch of holes in it. And there's just one diamond in the center. And I go, Pops, why you got all those holes and only one diamond in it? And he goes, it's a reminder that the holes are where I could have placed my love.
Oh.
Or who I tried to
good.
give my love to. But the diamond only sticks with your Meemaw.
Nice.
And that has stuck with me for so
That's
long.
beautiful.
And that's that agape love.
It is.
It's a reminder to him that this is my love. I've chosen to love this woman. That is, I didn't know that there were 3 types of different love in the Bible, or 4.
So, but here's the thing, Robert. If you start with, most people start with the eros love, erotic love, or with filial love, friendship, and they don't make it. But if you build the foundation on, the love, you have to be drawn to this person if you're going to spend the rest of you. You better kind of be romantically drawn.
You got to like them.
You got one, hey, that's the thing. You got one woman the rest of your life, so you better be like romantically, erotically drawn to her because that's what you get. I'm just saying. But if you build the foundation on, I choose to love my wife, and I know in advance there's going to be good days and bad days, but I say, and I believe that covenant I make with my wife at the altar when I get married is till death do us part. And I build my life that way. This is what happens. Then your friendship gets deeper. And then your sexual love, your erotic love, the romance love, that gets better. That gets better and better and better because the foundation is, because I'm still with the same woman that I was with almost 40 years ago. I mean, you just can't, maybe you can, but when you think about people cycling through man after man after man, woman after woman after woman, man, you don't even know who you're going to bed with because they've been to bed with a lot of people. As far as a friendship, well, they've already broken 10,000 covenants. How do I know he's not going to break covenant with me? The security that you have when you're in covenant.
Mm-hmm. Can we pause for a second?
Sure.
How do you even begin to mend something that's already been broken, though? So say we have somebody that's listening right now, or even myself. I've had girlfriends in the past.
Sure.
I've broken different covenants or whatever.
Sure.
Friendships have been lost.
Right.
How do you mend those cracks in your own foundation and then set the new standard for a new relationship?
Well, all of us have been there, Robert. Nobody's perfect at it for sure, but that's what I love about Jesus, because Jesus is the Redeemer. He redeems bad situations. And so you begin with praying to God, and you're asking Him to fill you with the Spirit to love like He loves you. Listen, people don't catch this, but in Romans it says that the love of the Father is poured out into your heart. How? By the Holy Spirit. So the Spirit of God is what pours into your heart the love of the Father. So the way I'm going to love my wife or my friends or whoever it may be It's not in me. It has to be divine love. So I need the power of the Spirit. I need the Spirit poured in me. And because if I love like the world loves, well, you see what happens.
It falls.
Right? It falls. So start with that. And then you ask God to help you. I want to love in a new way, in a fresh way. And God is the God of the second chance.
Let's transition into leadership.
Okay.
You've worked with your wife for umpteen years.
Yeah.
How is that? How is being in leadership and the separation from work life and home life?
Well, now it's pretty simple. In the early days, it was very complicated.
Why is that?
Because we didn't know how. I wish somebody would have had this talk with me when I was 27 and she was 24 when we came to New Life 30 years ago. Because most pastors, most leaders are really joined at the hip with their wives or their husbands in the leadership role. And so how do you go home and separate from what's happening at the church? How do you go home and turn it off? You have to be very, 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 very intentional. And again, in the younger generation, you have challenges that I never had 30 years ago.
What do you mean?
Because of...
Oh, at your fingertips, anything you want.
Well, because, someone texts you and they expect you in a nanosecond to get back to them. Well, I am with my family. I mean, ask Lydia, she'll tell you. When I came home from the office and we had only the landlines, right?
Operator, please.
Right? We would literally unplug the phone because I was that committed to my sons and my wife. On Mondays, that's my Sabbath, that's my off day.
Yeah.
I turned it on. Lydia and I, we spent time together, and we made the agreement not to talk about the church on that day.
Did it actually work?
Yes. Oh, we held each other accountable. Now, here's the caveat. Somebody dies, something and it happens. But for the most part, Lydia would tell you, Mondays and Thursday nights. It was on both of our calendars. Thursday night was family night. Friday night was date night. Monday was Sabbath. And it was just like it's what we did.
You just sparked a memory. You said that you set time to be romantic.
Oh, you have to.
You didn't let romance happen. That's a key, isn't it?
Well, it's not, I didn't let it. It's that if you're not intentional about any relationship, your relationship with God. I spent time with Jesus this morning because I know I've got to be in His Word, in the Spirit, and I've got to write my prayers. It's the way I'm wired up. I need time with Jesus. So I set that time. It's my most important time of the day. So if I'm going to have a great relationship with the people closest to me, my wife and my two sons, that means I have to look at my calendar and tell my time where to go instead of wondering where it went. I have to say Monday, that's my time, that's me time, but it's my wife's time, and then the kids come in from school, and then we're going to hang, and then it's the old day timers, but I just mark out Thursday night from 5 to 10 p.m. I had this line through it and just said family.
How do you go home feeling okay to let this time not be work time, and knowing that you still have a docket of 1,000 items to do at the office? Because that kills me. I'm a list person.
Yeah.
I have a list a mile long every day.
Right.
And if I can't get through that list, I go home. And if I watch even a basketball game during playoffs, the first 2.5, 3 quarters,
Right.
I will sit there and I'll be working just because I feel like I can't justify
Right.
the leisure time because I didn't finish my list.
Right. You can't do that long term. Well,
How do you turn it off to be okay with not finishing your work?
I've got this philosophy. If you work hard, you get to play hard. I'm going to bust it. I'm going to work hard for this church. But when I'm off, I'm off. And you know that. My staff knows that. I mean, again, it's different. If it's a crisis, something happened this morning and somebody came out of the house, I had to deal with it. And it interrupted actually my quiet time with God, but it was a crisis. Okay, that's fine. But I went right back and finished my time with the Lord. But if I don't take that serious, especially with technology, you won't ever have a quality private life. And this is the key, Robert. The more public you are, the more you have to have a rich private life. If I want a rich public life, I have to have a rich private life.
That's good.
You have to. Jesus did it. I mean, check Jesus out. Jesus was always telling people, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to go. Oh, Jesus, they need you there. No, I'm not going to do that. I got to go do this. And he says no to that. Jesus often, because he didn't have email or text or phone or all this stuff that we have now to get in your brain. I mean, he was able to be mindful. You know, that's the word they use these days, mindful. I'm in this moment with you right here, right now. And Jesus was very mindful of the moment. And where is God? And this took me years to learn this. Where's God? God is not in the busyness. You'll never experience God in the busyness, ever.
It's the be still.
Be still and know that I'm God.
That's good.
You know, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. That's one of the Beatitudes, right? What does that mean? It's not just pure in heart as far as motivations and all that. It's the clarity of heart, the stillness of heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Where are you going to see God? See, feel, experience God. It's not in the craziness, Robert. So you have to be clear about boundaries and saying, okay, I'm going to work hard for the church or for the business or whatever it may be. But when I'm off, I am off.
That is good.
And I just see for your generation coming up, that's a huge warning light that's going off in my soul. And I really don't know how to teach it other than give the warning and say, here's how I did it. But you guys have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Figure that out. How are you going to disconnect this? And you know, I go out to eat with people. And I'm trying, beautiful restaurant, we're sitting down, and everybody's phones are like yours is right now. It's up like this rather than down.
As I switch it down.
And all of a sudden, I mean, they're doing the whole cheat thing, like the light will go off and it'll be a text, you know, and they're doing that. Oh, yeah. They're not here.
You know who Simon Sinek is? He is a philosopher, author, motivational speaker. He's got 1,000 titles.
Okay.
Anyway, he has an amazing keynote that he talks about that even your phone on the table in a meeting will show somebody subconsciously that they are not important. Even having it in your hand and speaking on stage makes people think, oh, even if it's just your notes, they'll be like, oh, there's something more important that's about to happen. And it's crazy because if you hold an iPad, people don't think that.
Right.
But if you hold your phone, they do. Yeah. It's wild. Going back to marriage really fast, you said at the beginning of our talk about the man leading the home. How do you co-lead, though? How do you lead without being sexist in the sense of, like, my wife will have a voice, but like me as the man, I have the weight of leading my family?
Yeah. So I don't see it as sexist. I see it as being biblical in this regard. I believe that the husband, there's mutual submission. Paul talks about that. There's mutual submission that me and my wife, that I many times will say, yeah, you're right, Lydia. You're right. You know, it's hard to say you're right. But and then vice versa. But I do think that that the husband is the priest of the home, and that my job is to give the prayer covering. My job is to just give leadership, in the family, to bring us together. If there's conflict, we doing that. I feel like it's my job to initiate that. And I know that can be a subject these days that's, controversial. But I think the Bible's clear on that. And but it's not lording over them. Here's what Paul said. Paul said, "Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church and laid his life down for the church." If a husband will love his wife to that degree that I'm willing to lay my life down, what wife is not going to want to follow that kind of leadership?
That is true.
Because it's not lording over them. It's not demanding and, hey, I'm the man, you're the woman, shut up. Jesus didn't do that.
It's crazy that a lot of this comes down to servanthood.
It is. It is totally that.
So the husband, a key is what I'm feeling is a key is if you are willing to serve at all cost.
That's it. Lay down your life. Wash feet. That's what we do.
But even in the sense of just your schedule, like you said, the Thursday night family time.
But see, here's another thing, Robert, because you're going to have kids someday.
No.
I know you say no, but you will. You'll get healed. It'll be good. So here's the deal. You're going to have kids. And those kids, my sons both knew that their mom was number one in my life, that they were number two. Now that sounds like semantics, but it's not. There's times when I would go with Lydia on a date night, and I'm talking about when the boys were small, and we go on a date night, and the boys would be at the door crying, "Oh, why don't you take us? Why don't you take us?" "No, your mom and I, we're going to go hang out. I like your mom. Go hang with her. See ya." And they'd stay with the babysitter. I come back home, and they're all fine, right? But then every now and then, Lydia and I would go away for 2-3 days, and that would sure enough freak them out. But they grew up with an understanding, and here's what I'd tell them. I mean, I didn't say it mean, but I'd say, you know what? Here's the deal, because I've seen it again and again, where the mom and the dad devote their lives to the kids. It's all about the kids. They forget about each other, and then at 18, the kids leave. They look across the table and say, "Who are you?" Ooh. And they end up divorcing. The divorce, this is a fact. Check it out. The magic number where people divorce is between 18 and 22 years of marriage, usually at the 20-year mark. Why?
Because the kids leave.
The kids leave.
Wow.
They hit a little bit of midlife going on. They look across the table. And, "I don't even like you," because they haven't invested in each other for 20 years. They've been investing in their kids. The kids are gone. And I would tell my sons, I'd say, one of these days, you're leaving, she's staying.
Yeah.
And her and I, we're going to be good. And I'm telling you, Robert, now we're like all these years out. Jim's been married, 15, 16 years now himself. And he's doing that with his kids. "See ya, I love you, but Camilla and I are gone."
Yeah.
Because I modeled that for them.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. What is the...
Oh, let me say this real quick.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is, for pastors, the church can become your mistress.
What do you mean?
You can have an affair emotionally and with heart and soul with the church, attention and focus and love that should go to your wife or your husband that you're giving to the church becomes your mistress. So then, in other words, I'm going to devote 7 days a week, 24/7, man, it's all about the church, and then she's over there just waiting for you to give her some love, show her some attention, take her out and have a date night, or, give her some affection. She's starving for it, and yet you have nothing to give because you give it all at the office. And then all of a sudden, and I heard a pastor say this. Yeah, he's stupid. He said this. He left a church of about 5,000 people. And here's what he got up and said. "I'm divorcing my wife." He said, "God has not called me to marriage. He's called me to ministry." And what's so stupid is about 4,000 people went with him across town to start another church because of the divorce. The church, the building, always was left with a denomination. But that poor wife was sitting out there. He said this in front of her. She's sitting there. "Yeah, I'm divorcing my wife, and God has called me to ministry. He hasn't called me to marriage. Ministry is over marriage." Well, number one, that's not even biblical. At the end of the day, and I'm getting closer to that. It might be 10 years, 15, I don't know. But when my day comes, and I give the keys over to all of you guys, and you take over, and my day's done at New Life, I'm still going to be with her. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I feel like you and I have to look at you in the future, but as this spouse is number one. Because Robbie, you check it out and you look at it in your own life and people that you know and all that's happened, somewhere along the line, the spouse stops being number one. All of a sudden they're giving their affection to the job, or giving it to the hobby, or giving it to another woman or another man. And then the marriage is done.
Question, how do you tell the wife or the significant other about push seasons?
Yeah, well, yeah.
How do you just like...
Do it.
Communication's the key, right?
It is.
So if you're just like, "Hey, Lydia, it's Easter week, clearly not going to be home."
Exactly. So
is that how you did it?
Yes, it goes back to your calendar. Again, that doesn't sizzle, but I promise you it works.
So it's discipline.
It's discipline. Robert, we know Christmas is coming right now.
Yeah.
It's in the spring, but we know Christmas is coming. We know what that's like around here. So every year, as you know, because I do this now for my staff, every year post-Christmas, because I did this for my family for 30 years, we're taking time off.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is. So we shut the offices down. We say, "Hey, guys, we'll see you in 10 days. Love you." Of course, we set things up to where it's done in advance.
Yeah.
But same thing with Easter. We know Easter's coming. There's a big push. So every year I would tell my sons, I got to finish this thought. I would tell my sons, let Dad and Mom get past Easter. And then we're going to take an extended time and we're going to have a party. We're going to have fun. We're going to go away. But every year, my boys would tell you, every year at Christmas, Easter, the busiest season of the year for the church. Every spring break, I took off from Sunday after church until Tuesday night or Wednesday morning on the busiest week of the year. And I was with Jim and John, and I'd always take them camping. And that, again, what values that's sending to the sons? They're saying, this, they know it now, they didn't know it then, but they knew that Dad and Mom's putting them first. And specifically me, because a lot of times it was me taking them camping. So it's intentionality. It's saying, hey, listen, where do you put your money at? Where do you put your time at? That's what's most valuable. And as a leader, you got to always be adjusting that. So.
Wow. What is the biggest fight out of that fight? What is the biggest knowledge key that you can give to people through marriage?
Biggest fight? Gosh, we've had so many. We've never kept that private. I mean, while we're going through it, we don't talk about it.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me like the actual fighting part, but what's a key point from a fight that you could say like, oh, I learned this one. Rob, you got to know this one.
There's a lot of those. Okay. This took us 20 years plus to learn this one. And that is that sometimes, once you've done all the conflict resolution, you've tried to find peace.
There's a PJ Talks on that.
Oh, conflict resolution. Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Sorry, plug.
But once you've done all that and you reach an impasse, there's nothing wrong with having a short-term separation.
What do you mean?
So a short-term separation would be like if you've done everything you can and it's just it's not happening, and you know that another conversation's not going to help. It's good for you to pull away. I'm not talking about for weeks. I'm saying for a day. Sometimes it's a drive you go on and you're gone for a day. Honey, I just need space. At one point, we separated for 3 days. And it was just, we needed space. And we couldn't talk. And here's the key, here's how you know this. The Bible forbids you as a believer to quarrel. And we all know when we cross the line from having a dialogue into quarreling. And quarreling, the Bible says believers aren't to quarrel, right?
Define.
Well, quarreling is when we're not really focused on the issue anymore. It's now a personal attack.
Got you. Okay.
It's quarreling, and we're just going over and over because everything just escalates, and then you get to this point you're really not resolving anything.
Yeah.
So now you're quarreling.
You're just firing guns.
You're firing guns, and you're destroying each other. You're destroying the relationship. So it's best for you to take time out, and it was our counselor who told us that. I mean, Robert, you know the story. We've invested thousands of dollars on Christian counseling.
Pete Kuiper.
Pete Kuiper.
He's the man.
Listen, Robert, here's what I know. And this is why you and every leader has to take your marriage serious. And one day you will be, and you'll remember this. As Lydia and I go, so goes this church. And that's the truth. It was truer, not truer, it was just as true when we were in our 20s, but gosh, it's really true now. Because if I have a train wreck right now, I got a lot of people on the train.
Yeah.
So the point is you just got to really take your marriage serious, invest the money, invest the time, keep it first. People always say, I don't got time to go off and work on my marriage. Well, okay, just let your marriage fall apart. You destroy your business or destroy your ministry. Well, that's just silly.
That's good. You scared me a little bit when you said a separation. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But you're just saying like a little break.
A little break.
A timeout.
Timeout. Yeah, like you put your kid in the corner, timeout, same thing.
People don't do that anymore. You have to remember that gives psychological repercussions.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started.
That's another PJ Talks
I would love
topic.
to talk about parenting.
Well, not today.
I'd stir it up. Yeah.
We're going to call Brant for a marriage question.
Let's do it. We'll wrap
what
it
up,
up with
man?
this.
Hey, Brant, you are live on air right now.
What's up,
with,
Brant?
Pastor James Ranger for PJ Talks.
How's it going, you guys?
He is terrified what I'm about to ask him. I guarantee it. So, for everybody listening, Brant is soon to be, hopefully, Lord willing, a part of New Life's team. Currently, what is your position at Church on the Way?
I am the media coordinator at the Church on the Way in Santa Clarita.
Basically, he's a boss. But you are a fresh dad. You have twins.
I do.
Beautiful twins, by the way. I love them.
Thank you.
With a beautiful wife. And how long have you guys been married?
We have been married. We had, what was it? This is not good. I'm on the spot. Everybody's on the spot.
I can edit this part out.
No, so for
Actually, this part you
up
want to keep.
until we are in our third year of marriage now. But for a time, we had lived in 2 different houses, had 2 dogs, have had 2 babies, and had been in our second year of marriage.
So you've lived a little bit in those 3 years.
Yeah, we decided to jump in with both feet.
That's awesome. So we're talking about marriage today on PJ Talks. And I was wondering, since you are in the midst of marriage, what's a question for someone who's been married for 38 years, you said?
38. Yeah.
38 years.
Yeah, so I was actually typing a couple out to text you, and then you called me, and I was like, "Oh man, he's gonna put me on live, so we
Yep.
gotta polish this up right now." But one of the things that kind of I was interested in, and what are some things, because I was at a Impact conference the last weekend, and Pastor Lydia was talking about how young you guys got married. And so that kind of put the question in my mind of what are some things that you learned in marriage as a young man that you wish someone had taught you?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good one.
Well, Brant, a lot of what we've talked about today actually will answer that, because a lot of what we talked about was the early days stuff, because we talked about putting your marriage first, even above ministry. And that's very important, basing your marriage on a covenant rather than just emotion and feeling and romance. I wish somebody would told me back in the day that it's okay not to be okay and still be a pastor.
Wow.
In other words, Brant, I was raised in a very religious system where Lydia and I was broken, our marriage was jacked. We just loved each other, but we couldn't get along, but we had to hide. We had to hide because you couldn't be a pastor and not be okay. So I wish somebody would have told me back then, listen, you don't have to wear the mask, you don't have to pretend, and here at New Life, we're big on that. Don't pretend. Just be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest, and I think that's a big one.
You got one more for us, Brant?
Yeah, okay, so this maybe goes a little bit before marriage, but in leading up to marriage, in the dating phase of a relationship, what are some things that a person should be keeping at the front of their mind, whether pros or cons, to evaluate if that person should be their spouse?
Ooh.
That's a good one, Brant. You know what, let me just speak out of what happened with Lydia and I, because we were very young, 16 and 19, but there's some things that we already knew. I mean, we knew leading up to marriage that we had to have similar faith, similar values, similar vision for life, what we wanted to do, because Lydia and I both were musical. So we knew we wanted to do something with music. We knew that we would one day pastor together.
Is that something that you talked about before?
Oh, yeah.
You said, like, hey, I'm going to be a pastor. Are you cool with this?
Right. Yeah, I was already preaching. I'd been preaching for 2 years. And so Lydia knew, and then she was raised in a pastor's home. But here's what I'm saying. If you're dating and you don't talk about those things, like, are we going to have similar values? Do we, I mean, there can be some differences, and we can work on those, but you got to have the basic fundamentals together. the faith issue. Is our faith in Jesus similar? Because even different denominations and especially different religions, when they get married, you watch it. It really makes for difficulty. So yeah, I would just cover those bases there, and but the biggest thing more than anything, it just sounds like Christianese, but make sure each other loves Jesus more than everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. Well, Brant, you are our first call-in for
Cool,
PJ Talks. We're going to
right?
do a whole episode like this.
Maybe we just kind of stumbled
Amen.
onto something here.
That's good. Well, thank you, Brant. We will talk to you after a while, and especially if PJ says you can come on team.
Hey. Well, hey, thank you guys for your time, and thanks for letting me interrupt the flow of what you had going on, but glad to get to chat with you all for a little bit, and hope to talk again soon.
All right, we'll talk later, Brant.
All right, sounds good. You guys have a good one.
Thank you, buddy.
How cool.
That was fun.
Hearing from him as someone, because he's just a few years older than I am.
Right.
And he's been married for 3 years.
He's 24.
Is he 24? Oh, so he's 1 year older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. But to hear a perspective, it's good to know that his questions are very similar to the questions that we have talked about
Exactly.
today.
Yeah.
This is a great episode, Pastor.
It's fun.
Good to hear
I think
that.
it'd be fun to hear Lydia's perspective on this at some point too, because she really makes it more fun than I do.
We're going
She
to
tells
have
a lot more.
a PL Talks
Yeah.
episode. Get you out of here and get her in.
She would kill it.
I love it. But this is another episode of PJ Talks. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to us
Absolutely.
and hearing about marriage and leadership and everything else under the sun that we've talked about today.
Yeah.
You can always like, share, subscribe, listen to us on iTunes, YouTube, whatever you want to do. Whether you're walking the dog or on the treadmill or driving a car, you can tune in for PJ Talks. We appreciate it. You can send us an email at podcast@nlc.life. Pastor James or I will reply to those. Say what's up. Give us your questions, comments, concerns. But nonetheless, we will see you next week for another
Absolutely.
episode of PJ Talks. We'll see you then.
Can't wait.